Here's the hand. I'm going to go back to, it was the first night I was playing the 1-3 at, I don't know what room that is, the Horseshoe at Paris with all the tournaments. And the 1-3 is the first night I was playing cash at the WSOP this past summer.
So you play 1-3, okay.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be a great poker player. I'm not emotionally built for it. I've had runs. I do well at MTTs, micros on lines historically, but I'm not. And people really underestimate. I'm way better than people give me credit for because I'm more on the entertainment side and I play that up. So that's a little backstory on me.
Okay.
So the game I was playing, I'm live on the spaces.
Okay.
I'm like hosting so that's part of it. And I'm trying that for the first time. And I was drinking at the time, so I was drunk, which I've since quit doing. So I'm at this cash game. For this hand, I'm the villain has about 140, we'll say, and I have him covered by a little bit.
And this is at Paris?
Oh, I think I don't know which room it is. It's like the bigger of the two rooms with all the tournament, and it's that section. It's either Paris or Horseshoe. I can't recall.
Yeah, so you're playing like a pretty small, a typical kind of small stakes setup, right?
Yeah, the room's packed, and the little cash section's in the corner, and it's the WSOP.
Okay.
So the villain is an older guy. He's like thin. He's wearing a white hoodie that's like stylish, and he's got a beanie on. He's a little bit of an older guy.
Okay.
And he's drinking a beer too. So he opens under the gun, and it's his stack that's effective. And we'll say some of this, I'm just going by memory. So he's got 140 effective. That's his stack.
Okay.
He opens under the gun, and we'll call it, we'll just say we'll say not like 3X, right? So $9. I got him covered. I call with ace 6 of clubs.
Do you remember what position you were in?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was like middle position.
Okay, so he opens to 9, and Eden calls in middle position with ace
6. Ace 6 of clubs.
Ace 6 of clubs. Now I will say, I'm going to treat you like any other caller, Eden.
Yeah.
You know, the thing about playing like in these in a very, very sort of small stakes capped scenario like this is, and what I mean by this is like a game that's say like a $3 blind level or less, and you're playing like you're playing like almost like a 50 big blinds, but it's actually even because the guy's so short, and you'll see a lot of short guys at this level, even if you might not have more money. And usually even the open size is larger. Is that I would say it's about 85 to 90% pre-flop. 85 to 90% of the game is pre-flop. And I would not call with this hand against a 140 stack. Now, obviously, if you're just splashing around, you're having a good time, fine. But I would say that most of the money that's actually bled off in these types of structures are calling with sort of the wrong hands. Ace 6 suited, it's not terrible. I think much, much worse would be like somebody looks down like 6-7 suited or 5-6 suited and calls like a 3X open when they're only like 50 big blinds effective. That's definitely negative EV. High cards in this, it's almost like a hybrid of limit and no limit, where in these games, like king queen off and king jack off have way more value than like sort of the midish suited connectors. I mean, you got a suited ace, so it's a little bit sort of in between, but ace 6 isn't the best one. So there's just that. So I always give that to you.
Can I defend myself real quick?
Sure.
Because I completely agree. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking to that exact last hand where he open limped 4-3 offsuit and called me down, basically. So I'm thinking, and I'm going to agree, even when I'm kind of like having I still was playing tight, like a tight play, I would just fold that. Maybe ace 5 suited I might call like in later position, but I agree. In my defense, it was that guy's range I was targeting, if that's fair.
Well, right, but I mean, just because that's definitely fair, but I would say just because somebody is limping a wide range, like say they're playing like a very loose style, when they actually raise, that's a different range, and that might actually be. I mean, you've got situations where a guy might VPIP 70-80% of hands, mostly for limps, but then when they raise, it's somewhat of a premium. I don't think it's the worst call in the world, but I do want to say for people that play this level, it's mostly pre-flop, and you want to stay away with like the suitedness of your hand it's almost akin to playing a tournament where they look pretty, like the suitedness, but it doesn't matter as much as when you get up to sort of like higher stakes where you can play a full stack. But okay, so you call with ace-6 of clubs. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally not. I'm totally not regretting calling into Crush Life Poker.
No.
Guys, don't do what I do. I'm just the entertainment guy.
No, I'm just trying to treat you as like any other caller, trying to give you real.
I don't
tips.
know. I'm joking around.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. Of course, you're the pro. You're the friggin' grinder.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah. So that, let's say another guy. I don't think we were heads up. We'll say a guy behind me called. Right.
Okay.
So that's it.
I'll say the cutoff calls. Okay.
All right. So we go 3 to the flop. Flop is going to be king, queen, 6, and there's 1 club.
Okay. So king, queen, 6. So you flop bottom pair and a backdoor flush draw.
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to put it up as king of, just so that we can get the visuals.
Obviously, not the 6 is
king of diamonds, queen of clubs. I'll put 6 of hearts up here. Okay.
All right. So pre-flop rate, the villain, he leads some small amount. We'll say $12.
Okay. So under the gun bets like half the size of the pot, but that's definitely sort of a small bet because the pot's small, and we talk about bet sizing. It's just that when the pot's small, it's still somewhat of a small bet. I agree with you. Okay.
So I decided to just see what happens. Mostly, maybe I've decided to play a hand with this guy. I hadn't played too many hands. Like I said, I got history with the guy. He played loose the other hand. So I decided to peel this one I know the guy's behind me, but I think it's reasonable. It's small enough. So I do decide to call, and the guy behind me folds.
Okay.
So we're heads up.
So what I was going to say is something that you already beat me to the punch, which is, and this is common at any level, Eden, whether it's high stakes or small stakes. And this is why you are incentivized to do a lot of 3-betting in general in No Limit. So when you have a guy behind you and it's multi-way, you cannot make the types of sort of light calls that you can when you're heads up. Like if you were heads up here, I'd kind of rather have like 5-6 of clubs here than ace-6 of clubs.
Yeah.
But if you were heads up closing the action and you've got a piece of the board and you can improve, then it's a lot of times the call is fine based upon the pot odds. But once it gets multi-way, your sort of pot responsibility goes way, way down. And you'd be surprised how tight you are supposed to play here from the middle. To be honest with you, if I were you and I had like queen jack here, or queen 10, I think you're actually supposed to do a lot of folding with the guy behind you. It's probably pretty close. But anything sort of less, I think you have to continue on with your draws like jack 10 and king X. You just have to.
Right.
But that's how tight you're supposed to play sort of from the middle, just as an aside. But it's good that the guy behind you folds. So cutoff folds, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking I have a very particular hand. Obviously, a 6 would be gin. Like, nobody's going to put me on a 6. Plus, I have the backdoor nut draw. And, I even got a runner straight draw. So, look, I'm not saying I'm good. This is just I did put some thought into it. Right?
Okay. So it looks like the pot's like $50.
Yep. Okay, so the turn is some kind of negligible card. Like, we'll call it a 4, but it's a club.
Okay, so you pick up a backdoor club draw.
Yeah, pick up the backdoor nut draw.
Okay, yep.
Yeah. So he leads again for a pitiful amount. Well, I remember this. It was $20.
So UTG bets 20 after.
Yeah, so it's another week. So I remember the ratio. It's like this is just a weak freaking bet.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I'm not going to fold now.
Right. Did you ever consider? So I thought you might consider. So there's 2 things you can do here, right? You can call and take your equity to try to improve. If you think that there is fold equity, now you have pair plus flush draw. So if he had like a hand like king jack, king 10, something like that, where you didn't share your ace, you've got a ton of equity. You have as much as 15 outs with 1 card to come. And if there was ever fold equity, you could possibly make a semi bluff here if you sort of read him as weak. I probably would have done what you did though, Eden, even though you sort of kind of think it's like a little bit of a weak bet. He still bet twice, once into 3 players and now once again into you. I don't know how much fold equity you actually have here. And a lot of times in spots like this, it's either the guy's got you beat and he's not folding, or you might actually have him beat anyways right now with a 6. Like he has a hand like ace jack, ace 10 or something that might give up at the end. So I kind of agree with you on the call.
Well, plus that's why I gave that brief history. I hope that came through with like the one hand I played with this guy. I tried bluffing him on the river. Like I had nothing, and he called me with bottom pair. So to your point, I think that really lessens whatever he's got. It lessens.
You just don't think he's going to fold, right? Right. You don't think he's going to fold.
Well, I don't think so. If he has anything,
right. Right, and you beat nothing, by the way, too. So that kind of leans it more towards a call. Looks like it looks like he has about a pot size bet left. The pot's right around 100, and he's got about 100 left. It's king of diamonds, queen of clubs, 6 of hearts, 4 of clubs. Eden Rocks has ace 6 of clubs, which he called from the middle, and he's called the flop and called the turn. All right, so we're off to the river.
The river is the ace of spades.
So
and then the guy, I'm sorry.
So you make aces up.
Yeah, really one of the better river cards for me. But the guy like doesn't really hesitate and then jams it in my face.
So I'm gonna pull an audible here and do what I would do with a regular caller as well, and then we'll get to what actually happened. If he checked, what would you have done?
Oh, I would bet. I would bet for sure. I would think so.
I think that's I talked about how like 80-90% of a game structure like this is pre-flop. The rest of the money is probably making effective value bets when you should at the end.
Right.
And if a guy checks this river, ace-6 has to be a value bet. But you would be shocked how many people check back. I see especially. I'm sorry. I see so many people in your spot check back like a hand like ace-6, like, oh, I'm scared of ace-queen, I'm scared of ace-king. And it's like, you got to get your value. So yeah, it absolutely should be a bet. I'm glad that you said that. But
yeah, especially since I tried bluffing him the last hand we played. So I'd probably go almost like making it look bluffy, maybe like 80% of my stack. I wouldn't ship just on that topic, but
you might bet like you leave. Well, that's it's funny. That's a small stakes exploit. Like we have a list of small stakes exploits on Crush Live Poker. One of the things that's a small stakes exploit that I don't often talk about is what I like to call leaving some behind, which is something in this particular case, which is applicable where if you're playing a very short game, a guy might only have like one buy-in or something like that, where he needs the money to like tip the valet if the guy's valeting 140 effective, whatever it is. But you'd be surprised if you don't bet their entire stack that you'd actually get a much higher sort of calling frequency if you leave some behind as opposed to the entire stack. So I agree with you there.
Well, isn't it true? Isn't it true that like it's just another thing to annoy them with? Like they have to consider like what does it mean to kind of just put it on their plate, right? And I know I'm just the entertainer guy. I'm the rock opera guy, just making this stuff up. But this is actually how I think.
I just think that when you're playing a small game like this one is, there is a much better chance that if a guy goes to felt, they're not going to rebuy. Like they're done for the night. Whereas like if you get up to 2-5 or 5-10, if they're going to rebuy it, then it doesn't make any difference. But when you're playing small stakes, a guy might only have one bullet or he's on his last bullet. So that comes into account when you don't bet the entire amount. Because like I said, he might need the dollars to do whatever he needs when he goes home. But let's bring it back to what actually happened. So he moves all in for like 100, right?
Yeah. I didn't expect that, especially on that river. And so, okay. Now, I hadn't been talking in the spaces, but people were talking because you can't do that at the table, I found out. So I'm a little bit inebriated. I'm live on the spaces, but, while people are talking. First day. So that's now with all that, I do start trying to put him on a hand. I'm like, oh, what the hell is he supposed to have here? And my first thought was the juxtaposition between this weak bet on the turn to now he's shipping it in my face. Because I really didn't think he really had it on the turn, right? That was my gut feeling. So I'm trying to like, what could he have? And I'm only putting him on either specifically ace queen or jack 10.
Or ace king. You mean because you think he would have bet larger with ace king on the flop, you mean?
Yeah, and the turn. I think so. It's just a guess, but like ace king, top pair, top kick. Yeah, I'm not thinking of betting a line that felt as fishy as what this was. So I narrowed it down to 2 specific hands, ace queen and jack 10.
So and then before you give it the result, so you're saying in terms of the hands that would beat you for value, but you also think he could just be running a bluff and trying to use this as like a scare card. Given the line.
I don't here honestly, I didn't even think that far. I just and you know, people, good players can criticize me. This is where I'm at. But I I arrived at the two hands that I could put him on that would have me beat. And the rest of it, in my defense with that last comment, lazily, just kind of like, look, just chalk, like whatever the hell he's doing.
Well, I mean,
like you're right, some kind of craziness, but I gotta be.
Well, I would say that, and we use this term, and it's oftentimes misused sometimes, but he's somewhat polar here. And what I mean by polar is very strong or very weak, and very strong probably defined as ace queen plus. Of course, that beats you. What I would be absolutely shocked, and this is why sometimes you can make hero calls. What won't be probably turned over here, I don't think, although he did only have 100 left, is a hand like ace jack or ace 10. Because if you're up against an opponent that can actually make this bet with ace jack or ace 10, almost like it's a thin value bet, but effectively
merge bet.
Yeah, something like that. I was going to say that. Like, I guess you could say merge, like effectively value bet when they run into top pair. This is actually a much harder call when you're up against somebody that can turn over ace jack and ace 10 in this spot. I don't usually see that at the small levels.
Right.
So
neither.
if we take that out, that this line is not ace jack, ace 10, then you're left with him having you beat or running some sort of crazy bluff. And then, you just decide based upon that, you're getting 2-1. Do you think that he could be possibly like running a bluff? Is he drunk? Like what's his state like right now? But you have a bluff catcher probably against somewhat of a polarized range here. So whether or not I call, I would probably tend to do a lot of folding unless I thought that the guy was somewhat maniacal. Even at the higher levels, I got to be honest with you, I don't see this line like this, like for a full pot size bet of bet, like with ace jack, ace 10, because they have to be scared that you have jack 10 that might come in. So I actually might get curious in some of those situations as well. So what did you end up doing?
I ended up calling because I just decided I'm too strong. That river card was one of the, you know what I mean? Like, what am I doing? It's the 1-3. I'm live on spaces.
By the way, do you remember what I went back to on the flop? Remember what I was talking about on the flop when I said, it's hard to call in the middle, what hand I would rather have than ace 6 on the flop? Right. I said like 5-6. This is why, actually, because on a high board like this, you can run into other, higher aces up spots. So you called, and what was the reveal?
He turns up 9-10 of clubs.
Wow. Okay, you got him then.
Oh yeah, I got him. That was my big pot that I won that night before it all went to crap. But
9-10 of clubs, which is actually, that's probably not a bad bluff candidate for him. He bet a gut shot on the flop. He picked up clubs on the turn.
Right.
Bluffing through the back door, especially on a card that's very scary for top pair, can never usually be a bad thing. He also blocks you from having jack 10 too. So that's probably one of his primary bluffs. I'm not going to give that guy credit for knowing that, but it is what it is. But like I said, I think this one comes back to the fact that it's more of a call if he's never doing this with ace jack, ace 10, but I would go back to pre-flop. It's probably slightly losing pre-flop to make this call. And then on the flop, that's where I would say probably the biggest mistake is from this hand is I would definitely fold flop. I would much rather have 5-6, but you just can't call with the guy behind you. On the turn, I think you're fine. And you had him absolutely crushed, actually, with ace-6 of clubs. He only had a gutter to a jack to beat you, right?
Yeah, the guy.
You could have hit a 9 or a 10. Sorry, you hit the ace at the end. He had 2 overs, but you had him in pretty good.
Yeah, and a gut shot.
Right, 2 over in the gut shot. Yeah.
I think the guy got unlucky. I mean, if I don't hit, if he has played, how can I call?
Right,
I would have to make a real solve.
Right, you're not
call with a 6.
Right, you're not going to call like if he goes bet like on a deuce or something like that. Although I don't know, maybe you go back to like you thought his bet sizing was full of shit because again, even if the river's a deuce, like a red deuce, if you go back to his bet sizing, you're like, I don't think this guy has, this is let's say the river's a red deuce. And you went back and you're like, I don't think he ever has ace king or aces with the way that he sized the flop. And then maybe he had ace queen by the way he sized the turn, but he's certainly not moving all in with ace queen at the end. That's how I would structure it. So he almost becomes polar on a red deuce too. I'm not saying that I would find the call with the 6, but that's how I would kind of think through it.
Right. I mean, who am I? Freaking Phil Ivey versus Tom Dwan calling with the ace-6.
That's right.
Bottom pair of 6s.
Well, I think he tanked forever in that hand and folded. I think.
And then shout out to Daniel Negreanu, my buddy, which is a joke. No beef against Daniel Negreanu. Daniel Negreanu just started. You remember that part of the hand? Daniel Negreanu just starts chatting. He's just like, "Oh, I know what you have. I know what I would do." And he just starts talking to Ivy.
I remember he came on Spaces though with you one time.
Oh yeah, well, we can talk about that another time. Oh yeah, the knockdown, drag out, but no beef against the guy. No beef against the guy. Yeah, that was epic.
Well, Eden, I appreciate you calling in finally. I hope that this isn't the first time. Thanks for taking the time. I know that Monday can sometimes be a tough time that we normally do on 4 p.m. Eastern time, but we did it a special night on Sunday, so thanks for calling in. And I'm a fan of your work, for sure, for real.
Oh yeah, same here, Bart. And thanks for having me. And shout outs to Crush Life Poker. Even though I'm not a hardcore player, I do enjoy listening to you handle the calls. So, and shout outs to your audience.
Props for playing this hand while you were doing Spaces too.
No, it was wild, man. It was a wild summer, as I'm sure you caught some. All right, I'll see you around.
Yeah, maybe it'll be at the WSOP. I mean, maybe I'll see you this year at the WSOP.
No, you won't.
Oh, I won't.
I'm banned. I'm banned.
You're banned? For real?
From Caesar's Properties.
Yeah, but you can always get unbanned though. I know people have gotten banned.
I can always shave my head and dye my hair and something like that.
You have to write an apology letter or something. There's some process.
I'll wait for my friends. I'll wait for my friends to do that. Anyway, thanks guys.
All right, thanks a lot. Appreciate the call. Thank you very much. What a great way to end the show.